All right, Madison Alexander here at RLA. As you can see, I have a big panel with me. They had an excellent panel before. We have a few moments to actually kind of pick their brains a bit and get some of the best practices from our industry. So let's get into it. On behalf of IDX TV, let's rock and roll. Let me introduce everyone that we have here. I'm going to start in no particular order. We have Sheri Hinish here, as a matter of fact. Sheri is our awesome moderator. She was the moderator for the panel earlier today. She's a global practice leader in sustainability services, alliances, and strategy at IBM. I have a few little snippets from all you guys here as well, which is awesome. She's an executive advisor and thought leader, plus an influencer in supply chain sustainability, innovation, and leadership. She's also self-proclaimed official supply chain queen, everyone. Supply chain queen. Heck of a title there. Dedicated to helping customers design supply chains and empower the human experience. Great to see you. How are you feeling right now? You doing okay?
Fantastic.
Feeling well? Okay. We're going to come back and get some more info from you. Get some pretty impressive intros. We have Nicholas here as well. This is Nicholas Isai, and he is the executive VP, as a matter of fact, of DM Delivers. And by the way, speaking of, I want to mention DM Transport. I want to give a big shout out to our sponsors as well in our talk. One of course, being DM Transport, who's helping clients manage all of the logistics needs, utilizing the latest cloud-based technology. But coming back to our friend here. So again, he's the VP of DM Delivers. He has an impressive 26 years of experience. It's a long time for the front line of supply chain logistics, helping create custom-made solutions for all type of businesses. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It was a great panel. We had a very good time.
Awesome. A lot of receptive one more people. Time.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries. You're good.
Well, I don't know why she hasn't.
No worries.
No, we had a great time. It was a terrific panel. A lot of energy in the room. It was great. I feel like it was well received.
I think so too. Excellent. All right, so let's keep it going. Next we have Trisha Chappell. 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 I like that. Very nice. That's a very celebrity sounding name you have there.
I am that.
Not yet. Maybe in our industry.
Maybe.
In our industry. One show at a time. And we have Tisha's here, again, Senior Operations Manager at Overstock.com. A lot of us have spent a lot of time on Overstock.com. She oversees warehouse and supply chain operations, ensuring maximized efficiency and a premium end user delivery experience. And I hear you're a pretty kick-butt motorcycle rider as well.
That's right.
How are you doing? Any injuries?
I'm still learning.
That's good. So you have all your limbs now.
I've only dropped it once. Yeah.
Only laid it down one time.
Only once.
Solid, man. I gotta step it up. That's pretty adventurous. Okay, so we'll come back to you soon. We got a couple more awesome people to meet. Let's meet Mr. Thomas Sweigart here. We got Tom over here. How's it going, Tom?
Fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Very nice blazer. Nice to have you here. He is the Carrier Alignment Manager for iFIT. He's responsible for discovering, vetting, and negotiating beneficial contracts with new delivery partners for outbound and reverse logistics. Tom's philosophy is that the best customer experience begins with great communication between the shipper and the carrier. Is that the gospel you've been preaching?
That is the gospel, let me tell you.
Hallelujah.
I put my hand on it.
Yes, hallelujah. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
And last but definitely not least, we have Shari Rudolph. Thank you so much for being here. She is the Chief Development Officer and CMO, two dual titles there, of Good360, which is the global leader in product philanthropy and purposeful giving. Sheri oversees the teams that drive Good360's brand strategy, which is quite a beneficial strategy, ensuring that the environmental issues and meaningful social impact initiatives stay front and center. That's why we have you here today. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Thanks so much for having us. Good to be here.
Very nice to have you guys here. Awesome panel. So you already have that in your hand, that mic in your hand. Why don't I start with you? As a thought leader in this kind of realm, what do you think, about sustainable supply chains, about creating sustainable supply chains? Just some initial best practices and thoughts.
I think one of the things that came up during our panel today was it's really about collaboration. And what you saw, if you saw our panel earlier, what you heard was a lot of individual stories from organizations, both for-profit and non-profit, in the case of Good360, but working together we can figure out how to solve some of these major problems in the supply chain and the reverse logistics chain, from sustainability, from social impact, solving business problems, all of those pieces. But we can only do it together because the challenges are big enough that no one individual and certainly no one organization can do it on its own.
Totally. And especially since we're talking about a circle in general, one person is more of a line or a dot, right? To have a circle, you have to have multiple individuals.
Yeah.
And in fact, you know what? I'm just going to kind of open these questions up for everyone. If you guys, anyone wants to jump in there. So why don't we ask this? We've seen a lot of trends come and go, if you will, right? What would you say are some of the key ways that businesses can minimize their carbon footprint of the reverse logistics ops? For example, just emissions in general, let's say.
Well, I think, I'll take that. I think, one of the things that we're really seeing as a trend and we're trying to drive is hyperlocalism, right? Where the return usually in the past has had a path where it would get picked up from the point of origin, returned back to a warehouse, a vendor, right? And we're trying to disrupt that by keeping it local. So that way there aren't those miles, there isn't that carbon that's utilized going back. And then we can do good by keeping it local, reducing the transportation cost, making a donation with that product, and really making a profound effect on the world.
Well said. Anyone else want to jump on that?
So to Sheri's point,
Yeah.
it's the partnerships and the collaboration. And as the technology changes and advances, I don't have all the answers. Nick doesn't have all the answers, but I have an answer. Nick has an answer. Together, we find a solution. And so as things change, you've got to be nimble and willing to learn, and always assume you're not the smartest man at the table.
I love
and
that.
Understand that it's all about growth, learning, and that is the whole core of sustainability in the community.
Tisha, what are you going to say?
I was going to say that reverse logistics, we were saying this before, that it's kind of like we don't want to talk about it. But yet on the outbound side, we are always talking about it. We're always talking about how can we get to the customer faster? How can we make this experience better? How can we do all these things? We should be having that same thought on the reverse side. We should have the exact same, the drive, if you will, to get these things picked up, keeping that experience the same all the way through.
I like that.
I have one final thought around customer experience and some of the education and the opportunity and capacity building. Oftentimes the consumer is not aware of the impact that they have across the broader value chain. And if they had the opportunity to make a more responsible decision, would they? I think that they would. And I think that we're all seeing that people want to be a part of that journey. They take sustainability as a personal mantra in their own lives, and it shows up also in the workplace, whether it's direct to consumer, B2B, B2C. There's just a tremendous opportunity for educational awareness in how these decisions impact the natural environment.
I like that. I'm going to parlay off that. If you want to jump on as well, feel free. What about communication, customer communication? I think some of that falls into that. Being a base level for ensuring that customer experience, do you think that ethos applies to ensuring sustainability targets are met in the supply chain? Basically, it's just asking, how much is communication with that one-on-one customer having an effect on this one-on-one consumer?
To Sheri's point, right?
Yeah.
The customer wants to know, right? They want to know that something good is being done with that return. And it's not enough to just, we're taking it, we're sending it to a warehouse. It's important to convey what you're actually doing, because customers want to know that they're aligned with a company that's doing good.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I think we all want to align. Speaking of doing good, that's a good little parlay there. What about Good360? Let's talk a little bit about that. What impact are nonprofits having on reverse logistics?
That's a great question, and I think it's something that a lot of people, even in the industry, don't think that much about. Just to give you a little bit of sense of the scale, last year in 2022, Good360 delivered over $2.5 billion worth of goods to communities in need through our network of corporate donors and our network of nonprofit partners. So it is a drop in the bucket when you think of the official stats for 2022 are that it was more than $800 billion in merchandise was returned. So we have a long way to grow still. But $2.5 billion is still about 8 times what we were doing 4 years ago. So all of our partners are really embracing this. Companies are understanding that there is another way or an additional way to handle goods that are coming back through the reverse logistics channel, and not just to resell them, but also to potentially help communities. And we talk about sustainability. It's not just about keeping things out of landfills, but it's about building sustainable communities as well, right? And a rising tide sort of lifts everybody up.
It does.
She gives me
we're
chills
a community.
every time she says that.
So she just
Can we go back real
Yeah.
quick to customer communication? Because I think that is a key point. At iFIT, the goal is to be in a member's home and to do the extraction. And so the communication has to be solid from the start. So you've got to set realistic expectations, communicate those expectations, and then follow through with those expectations. I've never met one of my members outside of my family. Nick's team has met all the members. And so it's extremely important that my communication with Nick underscores or highlights what my expectation of when his team go into someone's home. So I think it starts at the very top, and that's my whole mantra. It starts at the top. It's how I communicate with my teams, how I communicate with my partners, and how they reciprocate that back to me, that then illustrates what my customer is going to experience.
I like that. Basically pulling back and saying the communication that they have within their organization is what's going to spill out to the individual, and that is all collected as well. That's excellent. Do you have any comments on that? Anyone any good? Okay, let me ask this. Here's something that I would love to go directly to you for. What are just some basic ways to cut down on carbon, like in the everyday to day, as in reverse logistics? Is there a way to make some cuts?
Well, I think the first thing is you actually have to be intentional around measuring your Scope 3 emissions. You don't have to get into the nitty-gritty of life cycle assessment, so looking at the actual material flows, but I think rethinking some of those basic everyday decisions that we're operating from a 1984 playbook that are sort of rinse repeat. We don't ever step back and say, to Nick's point on the panel, do we really have to ship this to point A, to point B, to point C, looking at touches, looking at how can we not ship this? And also the value that's left in the good or service. Specifically in the example shared by Tom and iFIT, there's still value in something that may be delivered that's broken. And is there a way to repurpose it? Is there a way to resell it? Is there a way to downcycle it even just at the material level where you're not leaving value on the table? And what we find is inherently companies aren't challenging themselves to think beyond it's landed and it needs to be returned. There is no way. And that was one of the themes that we all talked about during the panel, that this phantom place where things go when they're returned, it actually, there's a huge impact. And when you think about the two biggest threats facing humanity and business, climate change and social inequities, it's often these communities, as Sheri's highlighted, that had nothing to do with the negative environmental impact. They're hit first and worst by a lot of these decisions that we absolutely have to rethink. And this is low-hanging fruit. I mean, a return is low-hanging fruit. Really prompting people, and I think that's where the customer experience, the communication, the education comes in. Why are you returning it in the first place? Is this something that you need? How do you extend the life cycle of a product? Are you giving folks the right to repair? What type of services or additional sell-on services do you provide? So you make sure that every ounce of value is squeezed out of that good before disposition. And then at disposition, what happens to it? How are you bringing it back into the supply chain all the way upstream as a material input? Maybe it was already sustainably sourced, like our friends at Overstock. You already have that certification. We already know. We already have transparency and provenance. You can bring that back into your supply chain with the confidence that there's no child labor or forced labor or casual labor in that good. So this is 101 stuff.
Totally.
It's just low-hanging fruit that people can just really apply in their day-to-day life, in their day-to-day role, to rethink and challenge. And I would love Nick to
That's
talk
why we're
about.
here.
Yeah, Nick has said it beautifully. I don't want to steal the words from him, but it's really around, just stepping back and rethinking things. And maybe you can talk about that.
I appreciate it. For too long, and like you referenced, right? We've been doing the same thing in reverse logistics since 1984, which is pick it up and return it, without giving the thought to what actually can be done better with that. And it does start with the consumer and the communication with the consumer. And too often the thought is, well, we just need to get it out. We just need to get it out, and that resolves the problem. But that really is part of the problem, is not working with the consumer to find, why are you returning it? Why should you be keeping it? And I think that if the consumer knows the impact of their return, maybe they'd make a different decision. And if they can't make a different decision, they should also be communicated that, hey, okay, it's a shame that you don't want item X, but here's what we're going to do locally to make a difference. And it's those kind of things that people really need to sort of take all that they know, put it in a box, light it on fire, and throw it away. And think about something different.
I would think that particularly in these kind of scenarios, data analytics is a big deal, because it can remove that bias that we have already and just straight up show you what the trend, like what are people doing. Let me jump to you really quickly, because I want to hear some of your impact. Just some general ideas for any companies out there. Maybe it's a small business, maybe it's a medium-sized business, maybe it's a company that's kind of making a transition. What would you say to companies out there that are on that line of trying to figure out, do I need a true reverse logistics strategy? Do we need a true department? Do I need to buy into this process? Do we need to get a system? If you're on the fence, something like that, what do you think from your perspective?
Honestly, I would say that regardless of the size of your company, you should be thinking of all aspects of the supply chain, how it gets to your customer, how it is received back from your customer, and where it's going, because every little bit plays an impact to that. So I don't know if I could separate the two, honestly. And if you're super small and you don't have a solution, partner with the bigger guys who can offer you a solution. Overstock, we bring on partners all the time, to drop ship, and handle their supply chain.
And that's part of, a lot of times also, coming to these conferences help you do as well.
Absolutely.
And it's nice to have a virtual conference, but there's something tangible and intangible, I think, about when you get in the same room, right? And just collective energy, and ideas start congealing, if you will.
Yeah.
Final thoughts, guys. Let's go. Just anything on the top of your head, something coming up later this year, something you want to do in Vegas, things you're thinking about in the industry, anything. It could be anything.
I would just like to really compliment Tony and RLA on this event. I think that there are 800 people here. It's very well done. You mentioned the interaction and the face-to-face time that you have, which is different. It's way different than a virtual event. This is very well done. I've never seen the amount of engagement, and I go to tons of conferences. It's very, very well done, and I think we've all prompted the 800 people here and everyone watching to rethink reverse logistics for community resistance and social impact, and also being more responsible in your daily business decisions. So if we can all get together and do something, I don't even know what's possible. This is just 4 people collaborating.
Well, we could at least be one volleyball team. I know that. So let's see if anyone wants to see our team.
I'm not very athletic. I'm just going to put that out there.
To your point,
yes.
No matter the size of your company, and to Tisha's point, you need to have a solid reverse logistics process. Part of that is because, one, of all the sustainability things we're talking about, but also, two, if you don't have one, you have the wrong partner. And it starts there. So if Nick didn't come to me and say, Tom, let's talk about hyperlocality, I wouldn't have considered keeping things in market because it wasn't in my vernacular. It wasn't part of my workflow. Now it is. And so we've been able to become more efficient in our returns processes because we partnered with the right company. And so that is the framework with which I think people need to start looking.
not too dissimilar from a marriage.
Correct.
Right.
Well, wait.
Nick, we're not getting no divorce.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Are you guys good?
I have just one thing
yes.
to piggyback off of everybody else. One of the values that my company has for us to think about is be you. And so I would challenge everybody out there who's listening, watching, coming to these conferences to be themselves, and then also to challenge their thoughts, because that's how you get four people together and from different aspects of the world doing different things and come together with this plan, So, be you. Just be you.
Be you.
Yeah, and similar, Tish, I was going to say, challenge assumptions and don't settle, right? These are big problems, and the way that we've done things for a long time isn't the way forward necessarily, right? It's important to take the learnings that we have from the past, but figure out what applies to the future and be really opportunistic in identifying better ways to do it. And that is through being you and challenging assumptions.
We call it challenge ideas. Challenge people, not ideas.
Wait a minute.
I think I said that backwards.
The opposite.
Challenge
The opposite,
ideas,
man.
not people. Yeah, that's it.
Wait, who's on first?
I don't know. It's been a long day.
It's
been a long week.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of good stuff to absorb. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you so much. The panel
Thanks
was
for
really
having us.
excellent. Oh, very
very
good.
much.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Madison,
it.
for having
IDX TV, you got it. Guys, you know what's going on. RLA, that's why we come here in person, so we can share and collaborate these ideas. But I'm happy you guys at least got to watch at home. Have a fantastic time. We'll see you guys next time on IDX TV. Cheers.